Wash Ups podcast. I'm Jackson Wolf, and I'm with my co-host Garrett Collins.
How's everyone doing?
For this podcast, we'll be talking all things sports, and we plan to have guests, different segments, and maybe even some music just to keep us vibing during the show.
Yeah, like you said, this is a sports podcast. This is our first episode, so things are going to be a little raw at first. We're still trying to figure things out with the mic and recording software, but we're going to make the most of it, and hopefully y'all enjoy what we have to say. A little background info on the two of us. We both grew up in small town South Carolina, all the way up until high school. Even played ball together.
Yeah, 2 state championships as football players. Yeah, back to back,
Yep.
back to back.
And then we took different routes from college. A year passed on, and now we're back in the same area together, fortunately.
Oh yeah, good old Charleston.
And we got to talking one night and reminiscing about our sports days and whatnot. And we decided to start up a podcast, and here we are.
Yeah, and we plan to upload once a week, most likely on Fridays, unless for some reason we can't, and then we'll upload on that Wednesday. Or, maybe if something big comes up in the sports world, and we just feel like we need to do another one that week. Today, due to the end of the NFL being in the middle of basketball season and baseball season still a ways away, we'll be focusing on the new football league, the Xfl, just to introduce you to the sport and hopefully get you interested in it.
This is something I'm really hype about. And I've been following this since they introduced the idea in 2018. I watched the draft every day for 2 to 3 weeks. And then I looked at the rules, the teams, and players to watch. Kept updated with that. And it just got me really excited.
Yeah.
For those of you who have not heard about the new league or just don't really know much about it, this is a reincarnated league that originally debuted in 1999. The league was created by none other than Vince McMahon and was ran by the NBC and WWE. As you would expect, it turned out to just be a huge flop. And coming from a World Wrestling Entertainment ran football league, what could you expect?
Yeah, basically just the prima donnas.
Super dramatic, and it was just far out. And fortunately, however, the 2020 re-edition of this league makes sure that it's absolutely not going that route. They just want to forget about that, and they're focusing on maintaining a legitimate football league that the football fans can really enjoy.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah. No, I really want this league to work out. I've heard a lot of rumors saying that it's just bound to flop, blah, blah, blah this, blah, blah, blah that. And I think people are really just rivaling this league to the NFL, and it's just not the case.
Yeah, I actually saw an interview by Oliver Luck, who is the CEO of the XFL, and his explanation was one of the best I've seen. The XFL wasn't created to take over the NFL audience, but more as a complement to the NFL. It gives us entertainment for football all year round, which is something that we really want and really need as football fans.
Yeah, especially when the basketball season has the Drew League where you get to see off-season basketball. I think this is a good season to have for football fans.
So let's dive into it here right quick. The XFL consists of an 8-team league, which we'll dive into the teams later. It's a 10-game season. 4 teams make the playoffs. A big focal point of this league, and we'll explain the rules here in a minute, is to speed up the pace of football games. They made the point, the XFL, that people were tired of watching slow-paced games that last 3 to 4 hours. And so here are some of the rule changes to improve the game. The kicking game, teams must declare onside kick before doing so there's no surprise kicks. If a kick does not travel down to the 20-yard line, the offense will get the ball at the 45, and they kick from their own 25-yard line. The rest of the team sits at the 35, and the returning team sits at their 30. So there's no baby leg kickers in this league. You got to kick it almost the whole daggone field, basically. Once the ball's caught, everyone can move, and this is to encourage kickoff returns and have more explosive plays.
Yeah, so the next rule change we're going to deal with is PATs. So they're no longer going to be any kicking extra points like you'll find in college or you'll find in the NFL. They're doing away with that. This is an action-packed, fast-paced game. And they believe that PATs, even backed up to the 25, are just too automatic. So the offense will run a play from either the 2-yard line for 1 point, the 5-yard line for 2 points, or the 10-yard line for 3 points. And then also, if the defense causes a turnover and scores, it'll be worth the same amount, depending on what yard line they started on.
So for punts, if the punt goes into the end zone or out of bounds, it comes out to the 35-yard line or wherever it went out of bounds, whichever is most benefiting to the receiving team. And the punt team cannot cross the line of scrimmage until the ball is kicked.
Another one would be the double forward pass, which is new in any league. The college and NFL organizations have a 1 forward pass in front of the line of scrimmage, but now they're switching that to 2.
For the overtime, which can get a little complicated, so we're going to dumb it down for y'all. Each team gets 5 plays from the 5-yard line. They alternate until one team is mathematically eliminated, like they do in soccer for penalty kicks or hockey for shootouts. If the defense commits a penalty, the ball is placed at the 2-yard line and they run it again. If the defense gets a turnover, the play is blown dead. They don't get a chance to score. If the offense commits a penalty before the play, the ball will be moved back however much the penalty is worth. If the offense commits a penalty after the play, it is counted as a failed attempt. And also, a new rule here would be that there's only 1 foot allowed in bounds like there is in the college level. In the NFL, you're required to have 2 feet in bounds for it to be a catch. So in the XFL, they moved that back to 1 foot to allow more exciting plays.
Now to really dive into the time-saving part of the rules that they changed, it's the running clock, the first one. The clock does not stop unless it's inside the 2-minute warning. It's a continuous clock. And once they reach the 2-minute warning in each quarter, the clock will stop after every ball is spotted, no matter if the play is a run or pass, inbounds or out of bounds. Other time changes including a 25-second play clock, 2 timeouts, instead of 3, and then also there's not going to be any huddling. Now, with the huddle, they have connection through their wireless headphones
It's in their helmet, yeah.
And it's also in their helmet, yeah.
The replay, there's no coaching challenges, and there will be a replay official in the booth above the field determining plays that happened instead of having to stop the game all the time. And there's also an extra referee spotting the ball. So, I get the pleasure of introducing the teams on the XFL East, and those teams happen to be the DC Defenders, the New York Guardians, the St. Louis Battlehawks, and the Tampa Bay Vipers. So let's go through team by team here and let you get to know a little bit more about them. So the first, we're going to start with the DC Defenders. Their head coach is Pep Hamilton, who in college he was the offensive coordinator for Stanford, and he was an assistant head coach and passing coordinator at the University of Michigan. And in the NFL, he's had experience offensive coordinating with the Colts, and he was an assistant head coach to the Browns. His offensive coordinator is going to be Tanner Engstrand. He was at the University of San Diego for 10 years and runs a West Coast style offense. The defense coordinator for the Defenders will be Jeff Fitzgerald, who has been all over the NFL, mainly as a linebacker coach for the Colts, most recently also with the Bengals and Ravens and many, many others. Players to watch on this team specifically, we got the franchise quarterback Cardale Jones, who quarterbacked at Ohio State and who actually won the first ever college football playoff in 2014.
I also think he's going to be a fan favorite or analysis favorite just because he's had so much so many years in the league, coming in right after those playoffs. He's been on and off certain teams, played a good stint for the Chargers, but I think he's going to have more experience, and that's going to show through his play.
Yeah, he's going to be a solid quarterback for the DC Defenders, who is my favorite team personally. Who's the team I would be pulling for will be the DC Defenders. We're also here going to look at the running back, Donnell Pumphrey. You might recognize his name. He was the running back for San Diego State, who was a Heisman contender his senior year and rushed for over 2,000 yards. You also have a linebacker, Scooby Wright, who played at Arizona. And his sophomore year, he had 164 tackles on the season and 15 sacks.
Just to go back to the running back, Pumphrey, too many people really knew about him. I mean, he came from San Diego State, but he was 5'8". It's why he really didn't get that many looks NFL wise. But the kid was good.
Yeah, he was good. He was a Heisman contender.
He has the most rushing yards by any CFB running back ever.
Yeah.
I just don't see how they didn't get that production out of him in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad to see him in the XFL. I really do think he's going to beat Presley out of his position,
who is the starter,
and he's looking good too.
He is. He's looked good in spring training or mini camps. We also had the wide receiver DeAndre Tompkins, who played at Penn State. He was the primary target for Trace McSorley, I believe. I believe that was him.
He's a good kick returner too.
He is a good kick returner. I remember. The next team we're going to here in the East will be the New York Guardians, who will be wearing black and gray. Kind of a weird combination there for the New York Guardians, but they're going to stick with it, I guess.
I think they have the coolest mascot.
I
really do. I love the logo.
I do. Yeah. I like it. Their head coach is going to be Kevin Gilbride, who actually installed the run and shoot offense in the 90s with the Houston Oilers. So he's getting up there in age. He was the offensive coordinator for the Giants when they won their most two recent Super Bowls against the GOAT Tom Brady. Yes. Their QB coach is G.A. Mangus, who actually worked under Steve Spurrier at the University of South Carolina. And the team broke school. That was the year the team broke school records for points, yards, and completion percentage in that season. The defensive coordinator, Jim Herman, was a defensive coordinator for Michigan during their 1997 undefeated national championship season. He was also a linebacker coach for the Jets and the Giants in the NFL. Players to watch on this team, they got their franchise quarterback, Matt McGloin.
Another guy with some NFL experience.
He has NFL experience. He does. He played at Penn State in college, 2009 to 2012. He had some pretty solid seasons as a quarterback. I'll give him that. He did. Also highlighted linebacker Ben Heaney, who was a 4-year starter at Kansas and had 2 100-plus tackle seasons. And also Jamar Summers, who's looked good in minicamp. He was a 4-year starter at UConn and had 8 interceptions in 2015. As we move on here to the next team, we've got the St. Louis Battlehawks. Where's St. Louis? No. I mean, so St. Louis.
What was that?
Where's St. Louis at?
Missouri.
Okay. So now that we've got that cleared up, their head coach is Jonathan Hayes. There's not much about him other than he was a tight ends coach at the Cincinnati Bengals for 15 whole years, and we know how awful they've been. Their offensive coordinator, Doug Meacham, was the offensive coordinator at Kansas and at TCU in 2014 when their offense was second in the nation in scoring, and they nicknamed their offense their Air Frog, which was a high-flying offense. Defensive corner Jay Hayes, who is the head coach, Jonathan Hayes' brother, is a D-line coach for the Bengals and Bucks when he was in the NFL.
Now, how do you get that?
I think he had some connections.
You reckon?
He might have had some connections there.
I think so.
Anyways, the players to watch for this team: quarterback Jordan Teamu, who was at Ole Miss very recently, actually, 2 or 3 years ago. He threw for 4,000 yards his senior year at Ole Miss.
I really do think he would have been like a really good NFL prospect if he wouldn't have got all those injuries.
Yeah, he did. He was battling injuries there at Ole Miss. And,
so I hope he's able to recover in this league.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see him running a little bit too.
I would too. That'd be great to see him running around scrambling. The punter, Marquette King, who is one of the swaggiest punters ever.
It's really McAfee.
Him and Pat McAfee, however you want to say it, it doesn't matter. That's a state of fact. He's swaggy and he's fun. He has a lot of confidence in himself. Their running back, Christine Michael, who played at Texas A&M, I do believe.
Yeah.
Looking like a good prospect. We expect big things from him since we never really saw him in the NFL that much.
I remember watching him sophomore year, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, this dude's going to really go somewhere. And unfortunately, we haven't really seen too much production out of him, but I think that's going to be a bounce back here in the XFL, so I'm looking forward to watching him.
Yeah, never quite worked out for him there in the NFL. And the last team to round out the East here is a favorite of many, the Tampa Bay Vipers. Their head coach is Mark Trestman, who is the offensive coordinator for the 2001 Ravens Super Bowl team that got there, but unfortunately lost. Another interesting fact about Trestman, he is a 3-time Canadian Football League champion as a head coach. So that's a good resume builder there for him. His offensive coordinator, Jamie Elizondo, won the Canadian Football League championship as an offensive coordinator for the Ottawa Redblacks. Their defensive coordinator, Jerry Glansville, he was the head coach for the Houston House of Pain Oilers. And he was also the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons when primetime Deion Sanders was there. And an interesting fact about Jerry Glanville, this is his 7th decade coaching football. Started when he was 23 and worked his way for the past 56 years. So he's been around it for a long time. He's got experience, and that's why a lot of people like the Tampa Bay Vipers here. The quarterback for the Vipers is probably one of the most well-known guys in the league. Probably going to end up being the face of the league. Aaron Murray, who was a 4-year starter at Georgia and actually passed for over 3,000 yards every year as a starter for those 4 years and had a bunch of big games and a bunch of big performances. We're glad he's there.
He also played really well in the AAF past year or so. Just consistent outings since college, except for, of course, the NFL. But definitely probably going to end up being one of the faces, if not the face of XFL.
For sure. And we move to a receiver for the Vipers, Antonio Callaway, who played college ball at Florida and most recently well known for being a receiver for the Browns. We've got a linebacker, Terrence Plummer, who was a 4-year starter at UCF. He had 2 100-plus tackle seasons. And to round out the bunch for this explosive Tampa Bay Vipers offense, we have the quarterback and a flex back, Quentin Flowers, who actually played quarterback at USF, University of South Florida.
He's probably the most exciting player I'm ready to watch on the Tampa Bay Vipers.
Absolutely.
We watched the NFL, or for those of you that watch the NFL, you got that Taysom Hill on
New Orleans Saints.
Yeah. New Orleans Saints, yeah. The human Swiss Army knife.
That's exactly.
I believe this is the XFL version of Taysom Hill. I think it's going to be Quentin Flowers. I mean, there's just too much he can do. Of course, he plays quarterback. Yeah. He's caught some. Can play some DB, Yeah. And now they're putting him at running back. So I do believe he's going to be that Taysom Hill character of the XFL.
Yeah, it'll definitely be great to see where he plays out on offense. So that rounds out the East here. The Tampa Bay Vipers, green and gold. The St. Louis Battlehawks, who are blue and gray. New York Guardians, who I've stated are black and gray. And lastly, the DC Defenders, who will be red and white. All right, and now to introduce the teams in the XFL West. We start out here with the Dallas Renegades. Then we have the Houston Roughnecks, the LA Wildcats, and the Seattle Dragons. So we start with the Dallas Renegades, who are black and sort of a North Carolina blue, baby blue. We've got the head coach, Bob Stoops, who is famously known for being the head coach at Oklahoma for 18 years. He was a 6-time Big 12 Coach of the Year for the Sooners. His career record is 190 wins to 48 losses, which is pretty impressive as a head coach for 18 seasons. His head coach, Hal Mooney, or Moom, was a coach at Kentucky and New Mexico State and runs an air-it-out offense. His defensive coordinator, Chris Woods, doesn't have much of coaching experience. He was at Oklahoma for 3 years, helping out the defense, not really as a coordinator. The players to watch for this Renegades team, you got quarterback Landry Jones, who was a 4-year starter at Oklahoma, but didn't have that impressive NFL resume. He was actually the first XFL signee, but unfortunately suffered a knee injury a few weeks ago and will be out for 4 weeks. So Eric Dungy, quarterback at Syracuse, is predicted to start for the Renegades week 1. And I'm excited to see what he can do. Running back Cameron Artis Payne, who played 2 years at Auburn and 4 seasons with the Panthers.
Just to chime in here, I know a lot of people have said that he's going to be the real deal in the XFL. He was only got 4 seasons as the Panthers, didn't really produce all that much, returns and kicks and whatnot. As a Panthers fan, I got to see him, and I'm still not impressed.
Not impressed.
That's going to be that one that I'm against people in, is Cameron Artis Payne, and I honestly think he'll even be beat out eventually.
Okay.
But that's my take on it.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully he'll be proving you wrong, but we'll see.
I'd like to see it.
Next, we move to the defensive side of the ball. Linebacker Asante Brown, who was a 3-year starter at Western Michigan. Not much of an NFL career. He had 100 tackles his sophomore year playing safety, and then 90 his junior and senior year as a linebacker. And we've got wide receiver Badett, who played for the Vikings.
Yeah, Jeff Badett.
Jeff Badett. There we go.
Yeah, he played for the Vikings not long. Graduated from Oklahoma 2017, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Had a really good year.
Yeah.
He's pretty shifty. I think he's going to be their number one target. For Dungy to hit this, and Jones when he comes back to hit.
Well, they'll need it because not a lot of star power on offense there for the Renegades. Next, we move to the Houston Roughnecks, who will be sporting the navy blue and red. The head coach, June Jones, was a head coach for the Falcons in the NFL, and Hawaii and Southern Michigan University, or known SMU by most of you, in the collegiate level. He runs an air-it-out offense, and the interesting fact about this team is that they are the only team in the XFL without a tight end on their roster. So it looks like they'll be running a lot of 5-wide, 4-wide, 5-wide type formations. Their offensive coordinator, Chris Miller, was a first-round draft pick out of Oregon. He was a quarterback and actually played under June Jones
for Atlanta when he coached there. And another thing about Chris Miller, he was a quarterback coach for the Cardinals. The defense coordinator, Ted Cottrell, was the defensive coordinator for the 2007 San Diego Chargers, who led the league in takeaways and passing defense. So that'll be good for them to have that experience there and knowledge at the defensive coordinator position going against these high-powered offenses. Players to watch on this team, we got a few. We've got Connor Cook, who was a 3-year starter at Michigan State. He had 2 3,000-yard passing seasons. Their franchise guy, Philip Walker, is Temple's all-time leader in pass attempts, completions, passing yards, touchdown passes, and total offense.
With that being said, I still don't think they found a clear-cut quarterback yet. I don't know which one they're going to decide on game day, and we're a couple days out.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see who walks out there. Yeah. So one of the primary weapons for either of these two quarterbacks, whoever it becomes, is going to be Sammie Coates, who played his college ball at Auburn and had a 1,000-yard receiving season, and also formerly in the NFL as a Steeler, who was one of their main targets, and most recently for the Texans. The defensive end, one of them, Corey Crawford, I point him out because he's a former Tiger, Clemson Tiger. 10.5 tackle for loss his junior year. Not much of an NFL career, but hopefully he'll be able to shine in the XFL. We got a defensive back here, Charles James.
Yeah, Charles James may not be that impactful statistically. But he's a veteran guy. He's a veteran DB. You always want a DB that's a veteran on your team, teach the youngins how to play. I mean, he's been in the NFL 7+ years, and he hasn't been cut. He's just one of those get down and dirty type guys. And he's going to make sure that he doesn't get cut. He's going to get some playing time. And I think the younger cornerbacks are going to pick up on that. And he's just going to drive those guys. I think that's going to be his main role.
And that's a good quality player to have mixed with Ted Cottrell. And that defense is going to be definitely nasty. Also a defensive lineman, Coney Ely, who played for the Panthers, I believe.
Also the Jets.
And the Jets in the NFL. Next, we'll be moving to the Los Angeles Wildcats, who will be sporting the black and orange. Head coach Winston Moss is the only defensive-minded head coach in the XFL. He was a linebackers coach for the Packers, and his defense was named the toughest nails defense.
Didn't he play for McCarthy?
I think
it just got picked up.
No, he got replaced by McCarthy.
Did he?
He got replaced by McCarthy.
Okay.
He played linebacker at Miami, and we all know the linebackers that have come through there. Ray Lewis,
John
Beeson, big guys like that. The offensive coordinator, Norm Chow, he coached Steve Young, Phillip Rivers, and Carson Palmer in the NFL. And at the collegiate level, he won the 2002 Broyles Award as the nation's top collegiate assistant coach at Southern California under Pete Carroll. The defensive coordinator, Pepper Johnson, won 2 Super Bowls as a linebacker for the New York Giants and coached 14 years, won 3 Super Bowls with the Patriots under Bill Belichick. So we look at this team, and this is definitely going to be a very defensive-minded team, one of the better defensive teams in the league, and
honestly, most coached.
There's
a lot of experience on the coaching staff.
A lot of winning going on with the coaches. Players to watch. We've got a quarterback battle going on here, and it looks as if Josh Johnson is leading the way. He was a quarterback for most recently the Redskins, but has been all over the league. I think playing with 8 different NFL teams, being on 8 different NFL rosters.
Yeah, that seems about right.
We also had the running back, Elijah Hood, who played at North Carolina. He had 2 1,000-yard seasons. Defensive lineman, Devin Taylor. Some of you from around here might recognize him. That name. He played at South Carolina and had 15 sacks in the NFL career with the Lions and Giants. And also an interesting fact about him, he had 2 pick sixes in college as a defensive lineman, which is very impressive to me. Also, another defensive lineman that we're going to point out here for them is Shawn Oakman from Baylor, who is just a badass. No other way around it. He's a badass.
Yeah, I mean, how many other people have memes made about him?
Yeah, not many.
DK Metcalf's the only other.
Yeah, grown man.
But honestly, it was a terrible story. What happened to him with the accusations
Absolutely.
and the stint he did in prison, just to be overturned. It's really sad. I'm glad to see him back on the football field. I saw where they cut him not too long ago for locker room issues, it seemed like. And then they're giving him second chance now. I believe they just put him back on the roster not too long ago. So really excited to see him play. I know he's probably not caught up to speed, but I give him a week 1, week 2, and he's back to normal. I think
he'll definitely be tearing
that
up.
D line is going to be something serious with Devin Taylor down there, and
especially
also Shawn Oakman on the end.
Mm-hmm. And with that coaching experience too, they'll definitely be one of the top defensive teams here in the XFL. And the last team rounding it out here is going to be the Seattle Dragons, who will be wearing green and orange.
Look vaguely similar to UAB.
UAB type team. They're also the Dragons, correct?
Correct.
Okay, well, they might play like them too once you hear about these coaches. Jim Zorn, who is the head coach, was the quarterback for the Seahawks their first 8 seasons as an organization. He was also a head coach in Washington, and he was a QB coach in Seattle for Matt Hasselbeck and in Baltimore for Joe Flacco. The offensive coordinator, Mike Riley, has recently been the head coach at Nebraska and in Oregon State. Their defensive coordinator, Clayton Lopez, coached the defensive backs at the Lions, which they went 0-16, and the Rams for 3 years, and 2 of those years they went 1-15 and 2-14. And last seen, he was coaching in the Cayman Islands Flag Football Association.
Oh, God.
So if you ask me, this team might have some trouble on the defensive side of the ball.
To say the least.
Definitely, we're thinking in the back 7, they might have some trouble. Up front, they got some good guys, but we'll see what happens in the back 7. Some players to watch here. Their franchise quarterback is Brandon Silvers, who was not very impressive at Troy, but he was on the team that beat LSU that one year.
Yeah, so I think saying that he wasn't that great at college is accurate, but it doesn't do him justice. He is going to be a really good quarterback, in my opinion. He's been playing in and out of these smaller leagues, and he's been cutting it up. I mean, he's been having really good games. I think he's going to continue to do that.
Yeah,
in
we'll
XFL.
see. We'll see what he brings to the XFL. That'll be definitely an interesting story to watch here. And he has a good target in wide receiver Keenan Reynolds, who actually played quarterback at the University of Navy. And an interesting fact about him, he holds 11 FBS records, which is pretty impressive for a quarterback.
Would like to see him do like the Atlanta Falcons did a couple years back with Mohamed Sanu. Just right out the gun, toss it to your screenplay.
Yep. Get him the ball, let your playmakers make plays.
Oh, yeah.
It's definitely going to have to be a strategy for them. Defensive lineman Praise Martin Oguki. I don't have much on him other than the fact that that's a pretty cool name.
Yeah.
I like the name.
Oguki.
Oguki. Praise Oguki. To round out the bunch here, we've got linebacker Nick Temple, who was a 4-year starter at Cincinnati and had 113 tackles his senior year. And that is all the teams from the West. And something we just found out very recently, that there is a 9th team in the XFL, which is actually a practice squad team. Garrett, you want to go into detail about it?
Yeah, so the thing about Team 9, as they're calling it, is it's not going to be a playable team.
Okay.
Like you said, it's basically going to be practice squad. So week 1, week 2, your player gets hurt, your player's not performing. They pull somebody up. They're ready to go. And the thing about it, it's not just that it's a practice squad. I mean, they're getting coached, well coached, and offensive and defensive side. I mean, they're just going at it weekly. They're practicing weekly. They're staying in good shape. They want to keep the mentality going for them and the workouts so that they can jump into these teams and be ready to go, ready to suit up that Saturday or Sunday, just ready to hop on a plane. So I think this is a great idea.
Yeah.
And they can't be biased. They don't know if they're going to get picked up. They don't know where they're going to go. And they're just players that are going to work their butt off.
They're going to give it their all.
They're going to make sure they get on a team. And another thing about it is any team can pick up off of them.
Mm-hmm.
They have open film that they can receive.
Yeah. This is definitely going to be a good resource for teams and a good way for players to show that they can play all throughout the league, give players more opportunities to play throughout this league and maybe even one day work their way up into the NFL.
And another thing about it is the positions, they have pretty much everything except for specialists.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to see any kickers, punters, or long snappers in that little squad of Team 9.
Okay. And now we're going to go through our season predictions here, the final rankings. My final rankings, I've got DC Defenders coming out on top here, beating the LA Wildcats in the championship. I've got Tampa Bay coming in at 3rd, the Guardians at 4, Renegades coming in at 5, Houston Roughnecks at 6, the St. Louis Battlehawks at 7, and rounding out the bunch are the Seattle Dragons.
Yeah, my season prediction is going to differ a little bit. I'm also going to have the DC Defenders at number 1. Number 2, I'm going to rank the Tampa Bay Vipers, although they're in the same division.
Understandable.
I think they're going to give them the biggest trouble, or the Defenders the biggest trouble this year. Number 3, the Houston Roughnecks. 4, Dallas Renegades. Then the New York Guardians, Seattle Dragons, LA Wildcats, and then rounding it out at the bottom, St. Louis Battlehawks.
Okay, so one of the big differences in our predictions is the LA Wildcats, who I have finishing 2nd, and you have finishing at 7th. Would you like to comment on that as to why you have them so low?
I like the LA Wildcats here a little bit when it comes to the defensive-minded head coaching and just coaching in general. I do believe they have a defense that's going to back that up and really be strong. However, I don't believe in the quarterback.
They do have a quarterback battle. And
they do.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Not only does it go 2 ways, it can go 3 ways. I mean, they got J-Mac, they got Josh there.
Johnson.
I just don't think they've really settled on a quarterback. I don't think they're going to settle until it's a little too late. And then they'll pick up stride. But at first, I think they're going to be a little choppy on the offensive side of the ball. Relate them to a team, I'd probably say the Panthers.
They are a lot like the Panthers. They have problems at quarterback.
Yeah.
They'll have a good run game and a good defense, but the quarterback is the main spot. And the reason I have them so high is because I think defense wins championships, and I think with the coaching that they have and experience that they have coaching, along with studs on defense that will go out there and play for them. And I think the coaches are trying to do it the right way there in LA. You've seen them get rid of a quarterback due to whatever reason, whether it was locker room or play on the field wasn't good enough. And then with everything with Shawn Oakman, kicking him off the team and then, giving him a second chance, bringing him back. I really think they're trying to do things the right way there, and maybe that will pay off for them. One thing I wanted to comment about the Dallas Renegades, I had them at 5. I would probably have them higher, but because of Landry Jones being out 4 weeks, I don't think that they will be able to bounce back from it. And the problem that I have with the Roughnecks is we don't know who is going to be their quarterback because they're having the quarterback battle between Walker and Connor Cook. And I think if Walker plays, they'll be all right. But if Connor Cook ends up being the starter, they might have some problems.
Really?
Because I think Philip Walker is a much more talented guy, and he's a little more mobile. And Connor Cook being a stationary quarterback, I don't know how well that's going to work in the XFL.
I think in the XFL he's going to get some legs underneath him.
We'll see. He might have to with guys running around after him. He'll have to be able to scramble a little bit. All right, and lastly here we're going to do the Week 1 matchups for the XFL. Our first games are on Saturday, February 8th.
That would be at 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock, the first game
PM
kicks
Eastern
off
time.
at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. It's going to be the Seattle Dragons. They will travel to the DC Defenders. I think me and my colleague will have the same pick here. I'm picking DC because they have too much firepower on offense. It's not flag football anymore. I'm sorry, Clayton Lopez, Cayman Islands Flag Football League. This might be a little bit tougher for you than that. Cardale Jones, it's going to be too much.
Yeah, I'm taking DC as well. I mean, they're way too much for the Dragons to handle. They just ain't got it in them.
Yeah.
Good quarterback, just one guy's not going to get you there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right. Game 2 will kick off at 6 p.m. Eastern.
Is it 6 or 4?
I think it's 6.
Okay.
Will be the LA Wildcats at the Houston Roughnecks. I am going to take the LA Wildcats because I have belief in Moss and Pepper's defense. I think defense wins championships, and I think defense will win the game for them.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go against you on this one, and I'm going to take the Houston Roughnecks. I think that their offense is just too high caliber, and they're just going to overpower that LA's defense. I don't think they're going to be able to answer back on offense. Is going to be the problem, especially with that quarterback battle going on there.
Okay. And just to clarify, the LA Wildcats and Houston Roughnecks will kick off at 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock
5
p.m.
o'clock
Eastern time.
The next span of games will be Sunday, February 9th. Those will be the next 2 games. And kicking off at 2 o'clock will be the Tampa Bay Vipers traveling to the New York Guardians here. And I'm going to take Tampa Bay because Trestman is a champion coach and he knows how to get his players through adversity. And the last time we saw Herman as a defensive coordinator, he had that good defensive season at Michigan, but after that he kind of got dogged with defense. And I also have no faith in Matt McGloin. I mean, you say his name, Matt McGloin. Nah, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm going to take Tampa Bay on this one as well. I mean, I just got one thing to say, and that's Aaron Murray.
Yeah, it's pretty simple.
He's too consistent of a guy. He might throw an interception every now and again, but he's going to hit his targets. And he's got a big tight end to throw to, and some decent wide receiver core. And I think that's going to carry him down the road, get him a lot of wins.
For sure. The second game will be kicking off at 5 o'clock, and it will be the final game of Week 1. We have the St. Louis Battlehawks will be traveling to Dallas to face off against the Renegades. I'm going to go with the upset here.
Week 1.
Week 1 upset.
Really?
I'm going to take St. Louis because of Jordan Ta'amu, and I think him and Meacham's offensive system, I think it's just going to tear apart Dallas's defense. Honestly, I mean, I like St. Louis's offense. It's the defense that I have question about. And without Landry Jones playing, I just don't know how much Dallas is going to be able to get done on offense.
Yeah, I'm not going to go with the upset Week 1 here. I'm going to choose the Dallas Renegades.
Okay.
It really does depend on the quarterback consistency. You know, you have Landry Jones out there early, and you got to put in Eric Dungy. It's going to depend on his performance, and it's also going to depend on the performance of Jordan Ta'amu. I mean, coming back, he hasn't seen way too much field over the past couple of years with those injuries on and off. So that's going to be a deciding factor. I believe the reason why I chose the Renegades over the Battlehawks this game is the defense. And I think that defense led by Asante Brown is just going to be overwhelming.
Yeah, it will be. It'll be a tough matchup there. We are now coming to the end of the show here.
So like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what we can improve on.
Send us your takes or questions on the XFL or any sport. Also, what you would like to hear about what's going on in the sports world. Also, follow us on our Instagram page, which will be posted later on, and spread the word.
I'm Garrett Collins.
And I'm Jackson Wolf.
And this is going to conclude the first episode of the Wash Ups podcast. Thank you for listening. See us next week.